everyone, and welcome to the DEC Institute's next episode of Best Practices of Blockchain and Crypto Asset Professionals. My name is Shraz Ahmed, and I'm incredibly happy to be here today to speak with Sebastian Bürgel, currently the president of Hopper and was the co-founder and CTO of well-known Validity Labs. Welcome.
Nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
My great pleasure, Sebastian. And as you know, the Institute has launched a charterhold program for professionals entering and working in the blockchain, crypto, and digital asset space to prove their knowledge and expertise to the likes of clients, recruiters, as well as to belong to this community of like-minded professionals working in the space. So as we discussed a little bit before, the purpose of this interview today is to really get some insights from you, some of the secret practices of a blockchain leader, such as yourself, so that our charter holder candidates can get a feeling of what it means to be an industry practitioner. So maybe without further ado, how do you become a Web3 entrepreneur?
Yeah, so I guess, first of all, it's important to realize that there's no standard track. This is an industry which is A, so new, and B, so different from prior innovations which we've seen. Most prior innovations came out of universities, whereas the crypto and Web3 field does not, right? It comes out of this weird kind of hacker space with a really very multidisciplinary requirements of things that you need to understand. So basically, it is only possible to grasp that, if you have kind of an intrinsic drive for grasping these new concepts and willing to engage with them in a very practical and hands-on fashion.
Fantastic. Thanks for that. I think there's a really interesting insight there, which people don't often touch upon. It's not just one standard or one book. It's really quite ad hoc and diverse. And you've been in the space now for over 7 years. What are some of the best practices, if not like some tips and tricks, things to do and not to do when running a blockchain project?
Right. So, first of all, I would say for learning things and acquiring knowledge, I would really recommend that, you're diving in hands-on. You're trying to really use these services. I would say the crypto industry in general is so much driven by kind of hype and misinformation that only if you do the most basic things, like if you have set up a wallet, if you can, manage to send some transactions yourself, you're already ahead of the 95% at least, I would say, who are, just talking about the space. So I would really recommend people to get kind of hands-on with stuff and make themselves a picture, as opposed to just relying on other resources from which they learn indirectly. And then more broadly, as you're running, if you want to run I would say, successful crypto enterprise, I would really recommend, especially these days, in mid 2022, we see that more drastic than ever. Do not rely on any centralized players. If you engage in crypto, like either go all in or stay all out. Do not try to rely on any sort of centralized custodians, centralized traders, centralized asset managers. Crypto is made for letting you be in charge. If you're not in charge, but if you're taking this power that crypto gave you and giving it to some other guy who's likely not having more than half a year of experience anyway, don't be surprised if things blow up in your face. So that is, I think, something that is extremely important. Do use the power of self-custody and of self-sovereign money and data.
Well, that's a great valuable point there, especially the blowing up in your face part. I like to kind of add the with great power comes great responsibility. And if you're telling our audience here to kind of go through more of the decentralized route or more of the kind of your own keys route, do you have any tips on some of the best practices to do that? Of course you can set up your own wallet, but then navigating some of the decentralized exchanges, if they're looking at some of the DeFi pools, do you have any tips there of kind of how to do that in the most secure manner?
Yeah, so first of all, I would suggest do not engage with stuff that you don't understand. So for example, if you engage with yield farms that are promising you some yields that seem extraordinarily, but you cannot point to where that yield actually comes from, you are the yield, right? So that's something very important to understand. If you do not understand where the yield comes from, you are the yield. So I would really recommend that people do not engage with crypto products that they do not understand. So to make it simple, I would recommend that first of all, you set up your own wallet. So I could recommend like a hardware wallet such as Ledger or Trezor. Engage with a multi-sig, like set up multi-sig accounts, especially if it's for corporate purposes. Do not work with like single keys. Always engage multi-sig accounts. So in case of Ethereum, the gold standard would be the Gnosis Safe. So that is one gold standard. And from there, I would recommend to walk your way through the most popular decentralized exchanges and kind of lending protocols. So on Ethereum, that would most likely be Uniswap as a go-to decentralized exchange. And if you want to engage with basic lending platforms where you're more likely than in other places to not get scammed, take a look at Aave. So Aave is a lending protocol that doesn't provide you astronomical rates, but so far has not gone through kind of major scams and hacks. And that I think is is some achievement to show for.
Fantastic. Yeah, thanks for that one. If you're not paying for the product, you are the product, and make sure you know what you're doing before actually doing it. It feels a bit like a chicken and the egg problem. You need to be practical, yet you need to know how to be practical before actually being practical. So it seems like a crazy one, but ultimately, yeah, definitely getting your hands dirty is an important one, especially within the space. And maybe a last one to wrap up here, Sebastian. How do you, as a blockchain professional, gain all this knowledge? Let's say, firstly, staying up to date with it, but secondly, how did you gain all this knowledge to begin with?
Yeah, that's definitely a hard part. So when I began going all in on this crypto space in late 2015, it was kind of hard but possible to catch up with everything that happened on, say, Ethereum. In like 2016, that kind of became harder, right? And I tried to focus on only what happens in this kind of upcoming kind of token field. And then even that became harder, right? So it's an exponentially growing space and it's extremely difficult to stay up to speed. So I do recommend to stay up to date with the leading podcasts in the space. So the one that I recommend is, for example, Epicenter. So epicenter.tv is my go-to podcast. And then I would say Twitter. So people you're literally just one tweet away to engage with the most, informed and deeply engaged people in the space. And that's phenomenal, right? So Twitter for crypto purposes is not not for me anyway, kind of memes and social network. It is a public research field where people who research and inform themselves and learn in the space are active. Like, do use that. It costs you nothing and provides you great content.
Yeah, to be careful of who you follow on Twitter. Not too many degens, if not, you might end up on the opposite side of things.
Absolutely
But
right.
very, very valuable information there, Sebastian. Thank you so much for taking the time to provide further context here to our shareholders at the DEC Institute and to everyone that wants to participate in further getting education in the space. Really appreciate you taking the time. And yeah, have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you, Shiraz, for having me, and all the best for getting accustomed with your first very own money for everyone who's listening.
Thank you.